At this time of year, our thoughts often turn to remembrance, particularly of those who have died in war who were members of our community. And so in this short presentation, I'd like to remind you about some of those who had been at Silcote School in Wakefield and who died on the Ypres salient and on the Somme in the First World War. I have often called them the Silcote's POWs, though they were not themselves all in one POWs battalion. Amongst them there were those who served in the Leeds POWs and the Grimsby Chums, and there were many who served in other regiments and other services. Here they are remembered in Ypres at St George's Memorial Church, which is not a big place and not by any means the biggest place of memorial in Ypres, but here it is, a small church of the Anglican Communion, in which there are many memorials to schools and associations that lost members in the First World War. A much bigger memorial at Ypres is, of course, the Menin Gate, and we have stood there many times and heard the last post sounded, as we sound it at school on Remembrance Day. Every night it is sounded here at 8 o'clock, and it has carried on even in the times of coronavirus, although of course none of the public have been attending this year, and we are not able to go there either. But we are able to remember through the photographs and thoughts that we have recorded during our visits to the battlefields in previous years. The Thiapval Memorial is probably the biggest of them all, and it records the names of those who were lost at the Somme, including 6 Silcotians. But some cemeteries we've visited in the past are much, much smaller. Small cemeteries like this in small French and Belgian towns all along what was once the front line. Some of these cemeteries have only a dozen or so memorials, like this one at Hospital Farm, where E. Taylor is remembered. Others, like this at Tyne-Cot, the biggest Commonwealth War Graves cemetery in the world, contains many, many hundreds of thousands of names and graves. During this time we remember 41 Silcotians who were lost in the First World War. Here are some of their photographs, and they seem to have become frozen in time, a generation that we remember, for they will never grow old. We remember them for their bravery and for their courage, and we remember them for having had their names recorded in our own school chapel, this being Colonel and Captain Morehouse, father and son, whose names were also recorded in the Tyne-Cot Cemetery. During our visits we have also adopted other names and places to add to our remembrance. This poignant corner of a small town square in the Belgian town of Poperinge remembers those who were shot at dawn for cowardice during the First World War and who have since been offered posthumous pardon, and this memorial stands there to remind us of how this injustice was done to them. Others who were not of our own school but from our own city are also visited in our remembrance. This is the grave of Staff Nurse Nellie Spindler, who was from Wakefield and who died in Belgium. Overall, our purpose is to make that pilgrimage of peace that is mentioned here, that we too might be part of the remembering and the peacemaking that so desperately needs to continue to go on in the world today. And so it is then that we remember at the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. You're welcome to say with me words we always said on our visits to these cemeteries: on our hearts and on our homes, the blessing of God; on our school and on our working, the help of God; in our coming and our going, the peace of God; in our life and our believing, the love of God.